I'm in the Bisimoto headquarters with a couple of vehicles behind me. We're getting ready, excuse me, for a crazy SEMA coming up in the next 2 weeks. You just saw me sneeze because I have been just burned the candle on both ends, and it's kind of finally getting to me from a resting perspective. So please forgive my demeanor. I'll push through, make sure everything's good. But nonetheless, it's so good seeing each and every one of you. Thank you, Ben Tag Collection. Ben Lack Collection, appreciate it indeed. Hello, no Paul C, not Paul C. Thank you so much for joining. Greetings, greetings, greetings. And it's just been absolutely fantastic. Cindy 714, who was my old boss when I was in corporate America. Hello, Cindy. I don't have a cold. I just think I'm really just getting a little ill from not sleeping or resting much, which is crazy. Do you ever work? I do, Alvin. Alvin is looking through squares, very good friend and a great person who's helped me significantly on my success, especially around the H brand. Tech2sDay says, Okunhoy, hello, good day seeing you indeed. Rob Hoy, Hoyley, 50, thank you so much for the kind blessings. Thank you so much for all of you joining right here on TikTok as well. And for those of you on YouTube Live, allowing me to use this wonderful opportunity to archive our interaction. Thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate you indeed. Aloha says critic, how do you say that? Critic King? It's kind of a hard name, but thanks so much for joining nonetheless. Hello, good afternoon, says Lawrence on YouTube Live. Tell me you're not sick. I am not. I'm not ill. It could be allergies, could be the fact I'm not resting. I'm just really a little bit under the weather, just going non-stop. Hello, Ace Bash, greetings. RG Walker 007, hello to you as well. Christian Rodriguez on TikTok gave me my #1 gifter badge. Hello, thank you so much for that. Hello, courtesy of Houston, Texas. Alberto Capartillo is here with us. Thank you so much for joining the Bisimoto Tech Tuesday. And what are some of my nice topics today? Well, it's the same thing that keeps hounding me. See this car behind me with the little cover art, because we're doing a lot of fabrication and we don't want to mess up the cause. That vehicle right behind me was my very first performance EV ever. And the funny thing is that if you take off that rear wing on the deck lid, you'll see a bit of a shroud or carbon fiber plate there. And it exists there in the engine compartment because the noise that comes into the cockpit is so loud. When I remove that, I can barely have a conversation. The electric motor and the integrated drive unit with the transaxle makes such a loud, whining, almost mechanically supercharged style whine that I can't even hear myself think. It's just really loud. So I have this kind of dampening device. It's like an aluminum sheet with carbon fiber on top of it. And then that kind of gives the right amount of sound to come into the cockpit, because how the Kremer unit is designed, the engine bay can actually send information or sound into the cockpit. So it gets really loud. So that being said, it kind of dispels this myth, and guys, it is a myth, that EVs are completely quiet. And that's one of the reasons why some enthusiasts don't like it. And that's once again akin to comparing a stock-based Model 3 to a stock-based Toyota RAV4. They both are relatively quiet. You don't hear much of anything. They're not performance vehicles, but when you get into your Corvette or your Integra or your Civic Type R and you have an aftermarket exhaust, it's equivalent to, once again, a performance EV where you have some of the sound deadening removed, some opportunities to play around with torque curves and all that fun stuff. And even the most recent car that I drove, courtesy of Lexus in Japan, where it's like an AE86 that's purely electric but has this sound that mimics that of a 4AGE. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of concept where there is a sound that's affiliated with the driving style. In my case, I do prefer the natural sound of EVs and the natural sounds of petrol cars. And by the way, a lot of petrol cars do tend to get sounds that are artificial or amplified and put into the cabin. Perfect example is the 981 Porsche Cayman. You get into that car, what you hear in the cockpit with you is not the natural sound. It's actually amplified. There's actually speakers and tubes led into the cabin that make that sound. So I would like many of us as enthusiasts to really step away from this misconception that I don't like EVs because they're quiet. I like petrol because it makes sounds, because they all do. It just depends how you explore it. And by the way, nothing exciting about a factory Mitsubishi Colt because they're stock. They don't sound great. There's nothing coming out of it. It's just really sad indeed. What's behind you says Ahmed 666 Tamid. As I just mentioned, this is a Porsche 935 Tribute that I built a few years ago. It is an electric vehicle, my very first performance electric, my first electric ever. And I hated building this thing because I didn't want anything to do with EVs. I was listening to my friends and people in the industry and what people wrote on forums and here in social networking. People were just bashing EVs, and with no experience whatsoever, I joined. I didn't know any better. I believed the hype. I believed what Big Oil was saying. It's just really sad because it's not true. After I built this and drove for the first time, I immediately became a convert, an advocate. I embraced the technologies. And once in a while, yes, I enjoy driving the Odyssey, my minivan with 1,000 horsepower. I do like the M16 twin turbo Porsche 935. We have a couple more that we're building as well as time progresses. However, I cannot, guys, I mean it, I cannot shake a stick at the immediate torque that EVs provide. We're working over here. I can't shake a stick at the torque that the EVs provide. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna say something really crazy, guys. Recently, I had to jump out of the Honda Prologue that we built, that beautiful Honda Prologue with the Brixton wheels and airbag suspension, and I had to get into my Odyssey to go to the JCCS. And you may call me crazy, guys, but I was almost disappointed. I was almost disappointed in my Odyssey. Now, in the high RPMs, when we get past 4,000, it's a blast. Ooh, it's just so fast and spinny tires. But from a takeoff, with all the cool sounds, it was just slow. And I was used to that for years, but there's something about the immediate torque of the EV, even a not so high horsepower EV like the Honda Prologue. My Honda Accord will smoke that car, says Ben Dova. Well, Ben, if that's the case, let's set up the race. I mean, this thing does 0 to 60 in 2.06 seconds. And I don't know of any Accords that can do that, but sure, I appreciate the insights nonetheless. Okay, let's see here. Will you be opening a store in Nigeria or anywhere in Africa, says Ace Bash? Great question. And Ace Bash asked me a question that was really near and dear to me because I am from Nigeria, West Africa. My region, where I'm from, is becoming more and more viable from a financial perspective, from an economy perspective, from a motorsport perspective. So the answer to Ace Bash, yes. Sorry for the noise, guys. We're working our way trying to get ready for events, Where can I get a Prologue steering wheel, says Junior. I'm so sorry, guys. They're modifying a fuel tank for a Porsche 935 for center hole, so forgive the noise in the background. But if you would like the beautiful yoke steering wheel that's on the Honda Prologue that we built for American Honda and I've been driving quite a while, please write to me at sales@bisimoto.com and you can have it. Sales, S-A-L-E-S, at bisimoto.com. Perkin Beans on TikTok says, love the Odyssey. I do too. It's a beautiful car and one of my most popular cars to date. Gyro Size gave me a number 2 gifter badge, back-to-back 2 of them, and a number 1 as well. Thank you so much. Appreciate you indeed. Let's see here. So many great questions. Hello, Age MBIC. Greetings from Houston. Once again, appreciate your presence here. Exo Truck, who's been a great advocate for the Bisimoto Tech2sDay, has been doing this for years, says, I just visited Europe for 2 weeks, driving a few different cars, all with small motors, better MPG, but same torquey feel. Absolutely. And fuel is so expensive. Many times, from my observation, 4 times more expensive than what we see in the US. So that being said, it behooves them to really have vehicles that are very efficient, even very efficient diesels that are very clean. However, the EU has moved very strongly towards electric vehicles as well for environment reasons and also for the cost-effective nature. And have also embraced a lot of Chinese imports as well, which is quite interesting, something we don't have here in the US. Cyberpunk car right there says Criting, I need to get your name properly. Critic Cotting King. Okay, yes. Hopefully I did it justice, Um, hey, BC says Hamza. Hello, thank you so much. S2 Boost, greetings. Thank you so much for joining the Tech Tuesday as well. Your car stays says Hamza. Thank you so much. I think I chose it. He chose the wrong time for me to do my show. Okay. Is that a Porsche? Says user 253946562. Yes, it is. A Porsche 935. Easiest way with no engine or push it should be light. Use car skates. I don't know what my good friend Hamza is saying here. Okay, car skates like dollies might work, but the driveway outside the garage is on a slight incline. Yes, that could be a challenge. Corvolt, fellow engineer, is quite right. Any benefits in blocking the blow-off valve or making any benefits in blocking the blow-off valve other than making the smooth sound? Any in blocking the blow-off valve? Blocking it. So blow-off valves, and if I understand you correctly, which I love your car by the way, you want to block it off completely. That could be a very big challenge for the health and longevity of your turbo system. And if those of you don't know what we're speaking of, a blow-off valve is a very simple valve, as the name implies, that typically exists between the turbocharger and also the inlet of your engine. So from the throttle body to the turbocharger is typically on the cold side after intercooler. Sometimes it's placed on the intercooler or before the intercooler. And here's what it does. When you have a compressed section of air going to your engine, because the supercharger, or in this case a turbocharger, does a great job in compressing air and pushing to your engine, when you close the throttle, you have this column of pressurized air that exists from the turbo to your throttle body. If you do not evacuate that when you close the throttle, that air has to go somewhere. It can either go back through the turbo, which it does to stall it. So a turbo that's spinning quickly can all of a sudden stop because now air pressurized now trying to go the other way. Or in a crazy case it's happened, it can blow your throttle body back open, like kind of just bend the butterfly. What is the best way of evacuating said boost that's still in your induction? With a blow-off valve. So how it works, it has a signal to the valve that goes to your manifold on your intake. When you close your throttle body, immediately, since the engine is still pumping and the throttle body is closed, it creates a vacuum in your intake manifold. That vacuum source is then connected to this device, which is a blow-off valve. The blow-off valve has a diaphragm that is pulled up when it sees a vacuum signal, hence allowing the air, which is actually compressed and set up where it's sealed to the blow-off valve. It allows that valve to open up, compressed air goes through, and a vent to atmosphere exists where there's a little side port or multiple side ports. If you have a MAF system that is kind of old school or doesn't have an additional protocol for a MAP sensor, most new Hondas have that. It has both a MAP and MAF. If you don't have that, like the older RX-7s, like the Turbo 2s, if you vent to atmosphere, you can have a bit of a rich mixture or slight hesitation because the MAF, the air intake mass airflow meter, takes into account all the air ingested and gives fuel based upon that. So if you evacuate some of the air to atmosphere, your ECU already compensated for it, is giving fuel for that, so you get a rich mixture. Some older Porsches, like the 996 twin turbo, 997 twin turbos, also have the same function. In that case, you recirculate the blow-off back into your intake. So you have a closed system with appropriate amount of metered fuel, so you don't have any hesitations. Motec N, if you don't like the sound, the one good way, if that's what you're getting at, is to have a recirculating valve that can go back into your intake, back into the same tube that is blowing off, and that allows you opportunity to be able to